Welcome ladies and gentlemen to MTG Foil. Today it's gonna be a red modern prison deck that I'm gonna show you. Really popular deck in the format at the moment. This deck is a frustration for your opponent because with the Blood Moon we're gonna prevent a lot of decks from casting any spells. With Chalice of the Void we're doing exactly the same thing. We're gonna prevent our creatures to be target or spells of abilities that cost at least 1 or 2. And with Ensnaring Bridge, we're gonna try to prevent our opponent to attack us. The mana base. 2 times Gemstone Caverns to steal the game. Legendary land. If Gemstone Caverns is in your opening hand and you're not playing first, you may begin the game with a Gemstone Caverns in play with a lock counter on it. If you do, remove a card from your hand from the game. Can tap for 1 colorless mana. If Gemstone Caverns has a lock counter on it, instead add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. If we're not starting the match and we have this in the hand, stall the game. So a 2-off. When we're hiding behind our Chalice of the Voids, Blood Moons and Ensnaring Bridges, it's nice that we can actually have some lands that do some damage. So 4 times Raminap Ruined. It's a land, a desert. Tap it for 1 colorless mana. If we pay 1 life and we tap it, we can actually make 1 red mana. And for 2 red mana and 2 colorless. And by tapping it, we can deal 2 damage to each opponent. We have got 4 of these. 2 times Cavern of Souls, face control matches. As Cavern of Souls enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. We're gonna choose goblins. Tap for 1 colorless, add 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spells of the chosen type. And that spell can be countered. 2-off, just 2, because if we're gonna put more of those lands in our deck, there's a possibility actually that we are preventing ourselves to cast other spells. I've chosen to run 11 mountains with the same art this time. This is a tournament deck and I don't want to give away any information. If they're able to watch in my hand, they don't see if I draw another mountain. 11 of those. That was the mana base. Roses are red, violets are blue. You can't cast a counter spell with Chalice on 2. Chalice of the Void, a 4-off, no prison deck without it. Chalice of the Void enters the battlefield with X charge counters on it. Whenever a player casts a spell with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on Chalice of the Void, counter that spell. If you want to put a counter on it, you need to pay twice. So for 1 counter, you need to pay 2 times 1 colorless. An artifact, a 4-off, key card in this deck. Mindstone. Mindstone costs 2. When Mindstone comes into play, we can tap it for 1 colorless, and when we pay 1 colorless and tap it, we can sacrifice Mindstone and draw a card. It can produce mana, as well it can let us dig through our deck when we need it. 4 times Ensnaring Bridge. A key card as well in a prison deck. Creatures with a power greater than the number of cards in your hand can't attack. 4-off. This card's gonna prevent our opponent to attack us. It's gonna prison them out. Another prison piece in this deck, a Blood Moon, a 4-off. Enchantment, pay 1 red, pay 2 colorless. Non-basic lands are mountains. 4 times Desperate Ritual, an instant. For 1 red mana and 1 colorless we can make 3 red mana. There's as well Arcane, for 1 red and 1 colorless. As you cast an arcane spell, you may review this card from your hand and pay its splice cost. If you do, add this card's effect to that spell. We're running a 4-off to get our threats out early. For example, a Blood Moon turn 1 or an Ensnaring Bridge, or even better, one of our Planeswalkers. And a Pyretic Ritual, 1 red, 1 colorless. Nearly the same as Desperate Ritual, only it doesn't have Arcane. With these 5 instants, we're trying to get out, for example, Blood Moon at turn 1. 4 times Simian Spirit Guide, 1 red, 2 colorless, 2/2 ape. Exile Simian Spirit Guide from your hand, add 1 red mana to your mana pool. Basically in our deck, to get out a Chalice of the Void at turn 1, or to cast a Desperate Ritual or a Pyretic Ritual at turn 1 to drop a Blood Moon or an Ensnaring Bridge, or other shenanigans. 4-off really helpful in this deck. Legion Warboss, the reason why we put Cavern of Souls on goblins. 1 red, 2 colorless, a 2/2 creature, goblin soldier, At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. That token gains haste until end of turn and attack this combat if able. 4 off. Not only for the Legion War Boss we have chosen on Cavern of Souls Goblins, because we're running as well 4 times Goblin Rebel Master. 1 red, 2 colorless, creature Goblin Warrior. Other creatures you control attacks each turn if able. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a 1/1 red goblin creature token with haste onto the battlefield. Whenever a Goblin Rebel Master attacks, it gets +1/+0 until the end of turn for each other attacking goblin. A 4 off as well. These 2 goblins generate 1/1 goblin tokens, which are quite handy. Even with the ensnaring bridge out, if we keep the card from our upkeep in our hand till after the attack step, we can still attack with the 1/1 goblins at least. We include 1 Goblin King in this deck. Other goblin creatures get +1/+1 and have Mountain Walk. With a Blood Moon out, they have got probably at least 1 mountain. Keep in mind that you need to have at least 2 cards in hand to be able to attack. 2 times Pia and Kira Nalaar. 2 red, 2 colorless. 2 red, 2 colorless. When Pia and Kira Nalaar enters the battlefield, put 2 1/1 colorless Chopter artifact creatures tokens with flying onto the battlefield. For 1 red and 2 colorless, sacrifice an artifact. Pia and Kira Nalaar deals 2 damage to target creature or player. Pia and Kira Nalaar provide us with defense against flying creatures. Plus we can sacrifice some artifacts like Mind Stone and Snare Bridges, Chalices to finish our opponent. Or a creature that's in our way. Another way to deal damage when we're hiding behind our artifacts and enchantments. The last creature in our deck is the Hazoret the Fervent. Hazoret the Fervent has indestructible and haste. Hazoret the Fervent can't attack or block unless you have 1 or fewer cards in hand. For 1 red and 2 colorless, discard a card. Hazoret deals 2 damage to each opponent. This card can help us keep our hand small and dealing damage when we're hiding behind our artifacts and enchantments. And with Chalice on 1, they're not able to remove this card from the game with a Path to Exile. This masterpiece I actually won with this deck, so that's really nice. 2 times Chandra, Torch of the Vines. 2 red, 2 colorless, +1 ability. Exile the top card of your library. You may cast that card. If you don't, Chandra deals 2 damage to each opponent. Another plus ability, adds 2 red mana to your mana pool. -3, Chandra Torch of the Vines deals 4 damage to target creature. -7, you get the emblem. Whenever you cast a spell, this emblem deals 5 damage to target creature or player. When you just casted Chandra, always go for the add 2 red mana to your mana pool ability. Because if you're tapped out and you're exiling a card that you cannot cast, it's always a card that you actually wanted to cast. A 2 off, Chandra Torch of the Vines. The last Planeswalker and card of this deck, a 2 off, God of the Hammer. God of the Hammer, +1, untap target mountain, it becomes a 4/4 red elemental creature until end of turn, it's still a land. -2, add 1 red mana pool for each mountain you control. Keep in mind, if Blood Moon is out, all your unbasic lands become a mountain as well. For -5, you get the emblem. Mountains you control have tap, and this land deals 1 damage to target creature or player. So these 2 Planeswalkers actually are really nice to finish your opponent while we're hiding behind our Chalice of the Voids, our Blood Moons and Ensnaring Bridges. Let's jump into the sideboard. In the sideboard we're running 2 times Apparate, 1 red, 1 colorless. An instant, choose 1. Apparate deals 3 damage to target creature or destroy target artifact. You can imagine, really good face a lot of decks. 1 Dismember can be paid for 1 colorless, 2 lives or black mana, 2 lives or 1 black mana. Target creature get -5/-5 until end of turn. We can cast this almost any time from out of our hand. For example, to remove an Hazoret or another creature that's indestructible. 2 times Sorcerer's Spyglass. Beautiful card. As Sorcerer's Spyglass enters the battlefield, look at an opponent's hand, then choose any card name. Activated abilities of sources with the chosen card name can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. Really good face control decks, for example the Fairies, Jays or Lilianas, really good face Planeswalkers. Trinity Spear, a 2-off, really good vs Storm or decks with a lot of 1-drops, and good vs the Phoenix decks. As long as Trinity Spear is untapped, each spell that would cost less than 3 mana costs 3 mana to cast. More vs Storm and Tron, Damping Sphere. If a land is tapped for 2 or more mana, it produces 1 colorless instead of any other type and amount. Each spell a player casts costs 1 more to cast for each other spell that player has cast this turn. To help our Blood Moons a little bit more, it's really good vs Tron and Storm. Some Grave Shenanigans, 2 times Gravedigger's Cage, costs 1 colorless. Creature cards can't enter the battlefield from graveyard or libraries. Players can't cast cards in graveyards or libraries. A 2-off, really good vs Dredge and Phoenix decks. 4 times Leyline of the Void. Costs normally 2 black, 2 colorless, unless it's your opening hand. If it's in your opening hand, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield. If a card would be put in an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. A 4-off, you might need to mulligan aggressively to get this in your hand. Face a lot of decks, this is actually a win condition if you have got this in your opening hand. So a 4-off. It was my version of the mono red prison deck. Very easy to pilot and very frustrating for your opponent. Please let me know what you think of it, and I see you in the next video.